seen this one. This is a classic. Hey, I've seen this one. I've seen this one. This is a classic. Hey, I've seen this one. I've seen this one. This is a classic. Hey, this is a classic. Hey, I've seen this one. I've seen this one. This is a classic. Hey. To be successful, you got to be prepared.
Ava, I swear if you don't stop. Lay down.
It's Daryl Off. I run a YouTube channel here that's largely focused on the Elder Scrolls and other fantasy games. This video has gotten a lot longer than I initially intended for it to be, but I just needed to rant about Bethesda for a bit here. I initially wrote this script months ago during the Game Awards when I saw that Elden Ring was already getting a spin-off and The Witcher was getting another installment. It irritated me. It reminded me, once more, just how poorly Elder Scrolls fans are treated. And if you're a Bethesda employee watching this,
Now, I'm not letting you up just so you can jump down as soon as I let you up here. No.
If you're a
That's what happens. I didn't do it. You did it.
Well, I think we're all about the same page at this point. But anyway, let's get into it. So I've been an Elder Scrolls fan since 2010, and I just haven't felt appreciated by Bethesda in many years, as I'm sure is the case for many others out there. I went from being a starry-eyed kid who once wanted to work for this company to becoming a disgruntled former Bethesda fan who honestly just wants to see the Elder Scrolls IP move on to a different studio at this point. Since 2011, the Elder Scrolls series has essentially been frozen in time. Though there have been several entries into the series since then, the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim was the last mainline game to come out, and the timeline has not progressed forward past the in-game year of 4th Era 2.0. For those keeping track, that means that it's been 13 years since a proper sequel to Skyrim, which, for those of you who may not have been around at the time, was one of the best-selling games of all time. And it was a big deal. With games like The Witcher 4 and Elden Ring Nightring getting announced recently at the Game Awards, it made me really start to think, what the hell is Bethesda doing?
Tried the double Sonic Smasher, not a half price freaking me out. Lip ring inside.
What are you doing, baby?
I didn't get trying to log back in my
And now I have this fantastic opportunity. And to anyone else that also didn't know, I would say.
Why don't you write down your passwords and stuff? You always
No,
seem
I had to create
Because
another
I feel
account.
like I'm setting myself up for future success.
I used the
I'm
wrong
not just
email.
They've essentially squandered any good game that they had left as a company on ridiculous ingredient
Now I have
projects
my
from the past
Ibis
decade that often fail completely
I don't
flat
want to sign
compared to their previous games, which many considered to be at the time, and some still consider to be, masterpieces. In order to give you some reference, let's compare Skyrim to Dark Souls, a game that was released just under a month before Elder Scrolls V. From Software, the company responsible for Dark Souls, has, according to Google, a similar team size to Bethesda Game Studios, with both having around 450 people at the ready. So I think it's totally fair to compare the two. FromSoft have released 13 games since Dark Souls' initial development, 2 of which were sequels to Dark Souls. After 3 years, Dark Souls 2 was released, and 2 years after that, in 2016, came Dark Souls 3. All 3 games have their fan bases within the community. In 2015, they went on to create Bloodborne, a gothic, Lovecraftian take on the Souls-style game, which went on to become even more popular than Dark Souls for some fans, although this game was unfortunately a PlayStation exclusive, meaning that a significant portion of FromSoft fans, like myself, have never really played it. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice was then released in 2019 and has been praised for the new mechanics and complexity upon their already award-winning formula. Speaking of which, Sekiro went on to be named Game of the Year in 2019. Cut to 2022, and From Software released Elden Ring, a game in which they partnered with acclaimed Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin to create an entirely new IP, which jumped the shark in terms of the previous scope of their Souls-like games, adding the largest map yet to be featured in their lands, and a host of new gameplay mechanics. Elden Ring, just like Sekiro, went on to win Game of the Year in 2022. This is not even to mention their other projects like Armored Core or Deracine, or their many DLCs such as Artorias of the Abyss, The Ringed City, Old Hunters, or of course Shadow of the Erdtree, which, despite being a DLC, was somehow eligible for Game of the Year in 2024 due to its immense size. So my point is, From Software has been busy. Dark Souls was an immediate hit, and it essentially spawned an entirely new genre of games referred to as the Souls-likes. Regardless of your opinion on the series or these games, it is undeniable that From Software has a high work ethic and leaves their fans and players typically satisfied with their projects. So with that in mind, let's look towards Bethesda Game Studios for just a moment. Really quickly, I would like to clarify something because I'm sure someone watching may not know. If you already know the difference between Bethesda and Bethesda Game Studios, feel free to skip to this timestamp on the screen. Bethesda Game Studios is different from Bethesda Softworks. BGS is a studio of game developers whose frontman is Todd Howard, and Bethesda Softworks is a publishing company. So, games such as Skyrim and Fallout 4, for example, were Bethesda Game Studios games published by Bethesda Softworks. But Bethesda Softworks published tons of other games and studios, such as Arcane's Dishonored franchise, id Software's Doom franchise, and Machine Games' Indiana Jones recently, just to name a few. All of the games on screen right now have no affiliation with Bethesda Game Studios. They are simply all published under Bethesda Softworks. To keep things really simple, Bethesda Game Studios is responsible for Fallout and Elder Scrolls, and that's basically it these days, unless you want to count Starfield like a psycho. I bring this up because sometimes the accomplishments of other studios get attributed to Bethesda Game Studios, which really isn't fair. Honestly, either BGS or Bethesda Softworks should just probably change the name of their company at this point to avoid confusion, but I digress. Anyway, what have BGS done since 2011? Well, a full 4 years after Skyrim
Ava,
was
come
released,
on, man,
Fallout
seriously!
alongside a
Trying to do something real fuck quick, seriously.
Thankfully, the very next
Holy
year we got
crap,
a new
that's
game.
annoying.
Oh, no, we didn't. It's a re-release of Skyrim. It's the special edition. Okay. I mean, I guess it's nice to see the graphics get updated for next gen, but it had only been 5 years. I mean, we probably could have waited on that. But that's fine, because in 2017 we received... Oh. Yeah, we got Skyrim and Fallout 4 again. But this time for VR. Okay. I mean, that's smart. You have to keep your games playable on all types of new hardware.
I guess it didn't
suppose.
download.
Let's investigate a little bit further. The very same year, Bethesda released something called the Creation Club, which was automatically loaded onto every copy of Skyrim and Fallout 4. The Creation Club added extra content that players could pay for through buying creation credits. These creations were fan-made mods that Bethesda... Wait, what? They were fan-made... What does the script say? These creations were fan-made mods that Bethesda vetted and approved for sale.
Well, that sucks ass.
No.
I
They were
downloaded 4
contracting modders
images
to make
because I was
paid
going to use them
content
as
for their
art
6-year-old
for
game.
later. I'm looking
Okay.
on my phone and they did not.
Yeah, so
speak
this is
through.
when the cracks in the wall started to form for me. I don't
Ava,
blame the modders
please,
at all
my
in this
stomach
process. They were
hurts,
getting
man.
some money, which
I'm
I can
full.
respect.
Stop.
But this was genuinely beyond greedy and scummy
Laying
on
on my
Bethesda
stomach
Game
does not make me
Studios'
feel any better. Seriously,
As a
stop.
console gamer for most of my life up until recently,
Ava
the
May!
only way I could get mods was through the Creation Club. Meanwhile, people on PC had access to Nexus mods for
Thank
years
you.
on end. It was a predatory scheme to make a quick buck off of deprived fans. Then, in 2018, Fallout 76 launched a fully online MMO-style game by a studio
Well,
that
that
had
sucks
never
a lot of
created an
ass.
online game before. Yeah, I'm sure you can imagine how that went over. Fallout 76, despite having a beautiful map and enemies, was an asset flip of Fallout 4 that was thrown together with duct tape, spit, and crazy glue. It also didn't contain any human NPCs at the beginning of the game's launch, making the overall experience just empty and hollow. If you don't believe me, I was there, goddammit. I bought the $80 version on my Xbox. I played the open beta, and I beat the game, so just trust me on this one. Fallout 76 also opened a shop known as the Atom Store, which was a way to make money off of their fans. Again, just like the Creation Club. Do you see the trend that's starting to form? By 2020, Bethesda's next project was released, which I'm honestly confident that many of you watching this video will have never even heard of. Elder Scrolls Blades. It's a dungeon crawler / city builder game. This was a mobile project. I remember it got delayed heavily because I was signed up for early access, and I actually got to play this piece of shit. I got to play this game on my Android in 2019. Elder Scrolls Blades was received with mixed reviews by the community and heavily incentivized players to use their in-game store to buy microtransactional currency in order to speed up the process of artificially inflated build times for shops and houses within your town.
Just lay down.
That shouldn't really
I'll
come
hold
as a
you
big
to lay
surprise
down.
at this point, though, should it? They also
Ava.
lazily imported the Skyrim character creator here rather than making their own style for the game, and many other assets were just completely reused to make this heaping pile of dog shit. I've already talked about Blades on this channel before. I really don't want to talk about it again. It's the most hollow
Ava,
and
you're
vapid
being
thing I've
ridiculous
ever
right
touched.
now.
One thing that I don't think I've ever mentioned is that Blades was supposed to be released on consoles, according to
Lay down, lay
Todd.
down.
And we are going to bring Blades to every device and system we can. Phones, PCs, consoles, also virtual reality, on mobile, all the way up to high-end VR. On PCs.
Don't
And,
touch me.
yeah, that's literally
That's
never
assault.
going to happen. So,
I'll get you for
sorry,
assault.
Blades fans. By 2021, 1 year after Blades, we received a new piece of content, except it wasn't new. The Skyrim Anniversary Edition was the thing that we got. So we celebrated the 5-year anniversary with the special edition, and now the 10-year with another one. I guess I'll see you all for the 15-year celebration at some point too. I mean, how far up your own ass do you have to be to re-release a game like Skyrim that many times? I know it's a big meme in the community, but really pull yourself back and think about it for a second. It's just stupid. And the worst part is that the Skyrim Anniversary Edition is not even a new edition.
Come
The
here.
Skyrim Anniversary Edition was Bethesda's
That's how-
last-ditch effort to sell all
Get
of
on my
their
nerves.
stupid, greedy stuff from the Creation Club, since many players weren't buying from it, and rightfully so. Their brilliant idea, and I actually do mean that it was smart, was that they repackaged all of their products from the Creation Club into a new bundle called the Anniversary Edition, which tricked players into buying it because they thought it was a real upgrade. Now, if you own the Anniversary Edition, your copy of Skyrim is forever flooded with 1 million low-effort mods and 0 voice acting, empty fetch quests delivered by courier notes, and simply inexplicable lore contradictions. Again, I don't blame the modders for this stuff. I blame Bethesda Game Studios. I don't understand why some of the Creation Club quests have the same level of quality as the Unearthing Mehrunes Razor quest from Oblivion. Even the main 2 big creations that were promoted during the Anniversary Edition's release, called The Cause and Ghosts of the Tribunal, have exclusively reused dialogue from other NPCs in the base game. I mean, you're telling me that Bethesda Game Studios couldn't hire like 2 voice actors, or literally just 1 voice actor, to come in and record some lines? It's lazy. All the information in these is just delivered through notes and journals, which has become an annoying trend lately. Also, half the stuff in the Creation Club is just old weapons and armor from previous Elder Scrolls games that have very weak reasons for being there. Umbra's exclusion from the base game Skyrim for existence was on purpose, since it had been blown up essentially at the end of the Greg Keyes official novels. Spoiler alert. And now it's just randomly there in Skyrim? I don't fuck with that. It pisses me off. Like, oh hey, it's the Crusader armor from Knights of the Nine. Whoopee. I'm sure this isn't just here as nostalgia bait to make people pay for your cheap mod. Oh wait, that's exactly what it is. I'm not surprised. It's just... If you like the Anniversary Edition, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But Bethesda could have been releasing actual, curated DLCs this whole time instead of contracting modders to pump content into their game. Even 1 DLC every 2 years would have been fun to see. It would have helped advance the storyline a bit and maybe even draw up hype for Elder Scrolls 6. Even Gearbox, a notoriously shitty company, understood this. When Borderlands 3 was released, they made a new DLC for Borderlands 2 that helped tie it and Tales from the Borderlands to the sequel of it. Gearbox, a notoriously shitty company, understood this. When Borderlands 3 was released, they made a new DLC for Borderlands 2 that helped tie it and Tales from the Borderlands to the sequel of it. They even made it free for the first month of its release, which was wildly generous to the fans. And I mean, take a look at Larian. They're adding a new DLC-sized update to Baldur's Gate 3 completely for free, adding in new subclasses for every single class available. It's just flatly insane what other studios out there are willing to do for their... Anyway, I'm done talking about the Anniversary Edition, but I will say, I think it's the worst thing Bethesda Game Studios has done in a while. So fast forward to 2023 and Starfield releases, which Bethesda had been promoting for years on end with a teaser trailer way back in 2018. And it was just sort of meh. It came out and then everyone forgot about it because Bethesda refuses to update their engine the way that they make their games. Honestly, I'm sure many people didn't even know about it or cared to know about it. It had a generic name, generic box art, and it overall just looked boring. It looked like someone typed generic space RPG into ChatGPT, and this was the result. I've only played Starfield twice, once on Steam and once through Game Pass, and I refunded it both times because I refuse to endorse this product. Or Bethesda, to be honest at this point, but Starfield wasn't all that, and it just heavily reminded me of Fallout 4 in many ways. Reused animations, namely, which is really strange considering that this game supposedly took 8 years to make. Meanwhile, Bethesda's animations between Morrowind and Skyrim changed drastically in a period of just 4 years, and in the 5 years between Skyrim and Oblivion, the animations changed for the better yet again. I just don't know. I don't know why they've decided that Fallout 4's style of gameplay is the format. It's like the thing they're gonna cling to now, but just fuck it, whatever. Lastly, Bethesda released this sleeper trash called Elder Scrolls Castles, which is their third mobile game. It's basically a reskin of Fallout Shelter with horrendous-looking player models, to be honest with you, that look like they were made on the Nintendo Wii. If you'd like my full opinion, I have a video talking about castles, but honestly, I literally can't even bring myself to talk about it at this point. It's just bad. It's after your money. Just don't even... So, to recap this comparison, From Software has released 13 games since Dark Souls in 2011, with one on the way next year. 2 of those games have been sequels to Dark Souls, while 3 others have been spiritual successors. Bethesda has released 3 games: Fallout 4, Fallout 70 Shits, and Sharkfield, alongside 3 mobile projects, Fallout Shelter, Blades, and Castles. And this isn't even talking about other Bethesda Game Studios competitors like Larian, Rockstar, Obsidian, CD Projekt Red, or many others, which have far surpassed anything Bethesda Game Studios has done in years. So I will ask again, what the fuck is Bethesda doing? Well, unless you've not been paying attention, Bethesda wants your money more than anything else. They don't value you as a player, and they certainly don't value your intelligence as a consumer. We haven't even talked about the writing of their games yet, Jesus Christ. So, famously, Emil Pagliarulo gave this speech about how he designs games, and it is one of the most atrocious things ever. I don't think that Emil is a bad guy by any means, and I don't want this to sound overtly mean, but I'm trying to make a point here. Just listen to this.
When we start writing a story at Bethesda, when I start working with the team, we start big. Like, we always want to do this. So we always want to like the Craig American novel. It's going to be this thick. And on every page will be written comedy and tragedy, and it'll be wonderful. It'll be amazing. And you're going to give this book, this Great American Novel, to the player. And what are they going to do with it? They're going to rip out every page and make paper airplanes out of them. And they're going to throw them around the room. And they're never going to see your story. Because the story is there, right? But they are going to spend 30 hours making shacks.
He straight up said that Bethesda fans don't care about the stories in their games, so they don't need to push themselves to make better stories. Why try to write Moby Dick as your story when people are going to, what did he say again? Ignore it and just make shacks? Actually, we'll come back to that. Let's run back and talk about their 2 different franchises for a moment. From what it looks like to me, Bethesda has been pumping all of their time and resources into Fallout as of late instead of Elder Scrolls. Fallout not only received 2 back-to-back releases, 3 actually if you count Fallout Shelter, but they've done crossover events with Magic the Gathering recently and Amazon for the TV show. A quick look on Bethesda Store shows the sheer disparity in products available as well, with 129 Fallout-related items on their store. Meanwhile, Elder Scrolls is sitting pretty at a measly 29, all of which, by the way, are either Skyrim-themed or Elder Scrolls Online-themed. Because who cares about Oblivion, Morrowind, Arena, Daggerfall? Just take your pick, no one cares about those. Fallout also recently got a TV show on Amazon Prime, and Fallout 76, despite massive initial rejection by the fanbase as a whole, has continued and continued to get updated throughout the years, and has likely pulled dozens of resources away from Elder Scrolls 6, potentially pushing back the release date of 6 by years. But why is this? Why is Fallout the golden child now, while Elder Scrolls, the brand that put Bethesda Game Studios on the map, is just left to rot? Merchandising! Well, in my eyes, it comes down to marketability. I believe I've touched on this in my Elder Scrolls Castles video, but I'm going to bring it up again. Elder Scrolls is simply not as marketable as a franchise as Fallout is. Fallout is extremely easy, actually. They have Vault Boy, they have Vault Suits, Nuka-Cola, the American 50s aesthetic in every game, Power Armor, Pip-Boys, and a billion other things.
Spaceballs the t-shirt! Spaceballs the coloring book! Spaceballs the lunchbox! Spaceballs the breakfast cereal! Spaceballs the flamethrower! Kids love this one. Last but not least, Spaceballs the dog. Me. And the Schwartz may with you. Not Carl.
Elder Scrolls, meanwhile, doesn't really have things that translate that well across the series. All the armor and weapon types change throughout the Elder Scrolls games. The settings vastly differ from one another, and so too does the gameplay and the user interface for all the games, not even to mention the themes are often drastically different as well, making a singular motif or style difficult to embody in merchandise. And Bethesda technically hasn't needed to make an Elder Scrolls game for years now, since ESO has been around since 2014, developed by ZeniMax Online Studios, not Bethesda Game Studios. And while many Elder Scrolls fans have been unhappy with ESO, do you think that really matters to them? ESO has its own in-game predatory store, which honestly may have inspired the genesis of the Creation Club, and it releases overpriced DLCs every year which rake in tons of money from their sharks, or from deprived Elder Scrolls fans who just want to play a story set in Tamriel again. Look, I have over 100 days of playtime on ESO, but I think it's an MMO first and an Elder Scrolls game second. Its prime function is to get you invested and take your money. And this is no shade thrown on the employees at these companies again. I don't think anyone who works at these studios is intentionally releasing bad products year after year, or at least I hope not. But I wanted to really get the point across that it seems like Bethesda's prime function has shifted from making good games to making money. And this was long before even the Microsoft takeover. Also, the Elder Scrolls Legends, which was not made by Bethesda Game Studios, has been one of the few projects over the years produced by these people that has not been predatory on the player's wallet. However, as of January 30th, 2025, the Elder Scrolls Legends was cancelled, while Blades, Shelter, and Castles remain. Just saying, the only one that wasn't predatory got canned. Rest in peace, Legends. But back to Bethesda Game Studios. Bethesda's RPGs have been getting simpler and simpler as time has gone on. That's a fact that even the most die-hard Bethesda enjoyer can't deny. The thing is, there's nothing inherently wrong with simplification, so long as the product you make is still good. Again, Skyrim was once one of the most revered and widely played games in the 2010s, and it's much simpler than its predecessors. This is because of access they had to a wider market due to this simplification. And I think, generally speaking, it's a good thing to have more people playing your games for exposure to the universe. But Skyrim is still functional. It might be a little bit buggy, and it's more of an action RPG than a traditional one, but that's fine. Despite broader accessibility, Skyrim still has...
Augen auf! Cut him down!
Babe,
Okay.
you're about to die.
No, I'm not.
You're falling asleep. Sit up. You almost died, nigga.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
You did.